Hello, and thank you for watching this video. I want to play this clip. This is from Grace Community Church. A Q&A was held, an event after John MacArthur went home to be with the Lord. This is obviously the big question everyone's asking and wondering about who's going to be the next pastor of the church. Well, that actually came up. So Phil Johnson, who is John MacArthur's right hand in the ministry, normally it would be a Q&A with Phil and John. Well, the optics of this, I think, are significant, maybe not, but Phil is actually sitting down with Mike Riccardi, and they're holding a Q&A, and this actually came up. So as of now, this is the most information. No answer is being given. Okay, this guy is going to be the next pastor. But as of right now, this is the most information we've got about what the game plan is. Do we get a little hint here of who the next pastor is going to be? Some are going to say, yes, I think it's this, or did you pick up on this? Well, let's watch the clip and we'll come back and talk about it.
And so just immediately, Nathan Busenitz is going to continue the Gospel of Mark when we return to church in August. And I think you're up next week.
Next week, yeah.
That's awesome. You're doing Matthew 11, is that right?
That's right.
So come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So Phil will lead us next Sunday, but then I think starting in August, Nathan will continue the book of Mark, and for I imagine a couple of months, and then next we'll see who takes it. But it will be work shared among the pastoral staff, and throughout that time, the elders will continue to pray for who might become the next sort of
right,
pastor.
And don't be surprised or dismayed if it takes 2 years before we actually have another permanent pastor. Grace Church is blessed with a large group of men who are here right now who are capable of filling the pulpit, and they'll do that while the elders survey the landscape and see who might be available. People ask me all the time, people have been asking me for years, who will be the pastor of Grace Church after John? And no one knows the answer to that. My suspicion is it will be someone who was trained here, and probably not someone who's here now, but someone who was sent out and pastored a church somewhere and had an effective ministry there, and they'll call him back. That's just my guess. That's not. I don't have any inside knowledge to what the next step will be, because no one knows.
Okay, so you heard what they said. First, again, on stage is Phil Johnson, probably, aside from John MacArthur, the most recognizable figure at Grace Community Church, and grace to you. So you have Phil Johnson with Mike Riccardi. Both men serve as elders of Grace Community Church, and they have a lot of elders, okay? Now, I already said in a previous podcast that in my opinion, which, for whatever that's worth, not a lot, but in my opinion, I thought Mike Riccardi would be selected as the next pastor. He might be. Phil seems to maybe think otherwise. Of course, Mike's sitting right on the stage. And I don't think any of them really expected. I mean, if they had this conversation, if John expressed his views and his desires, not that he got to handpick his successor. In an elder-run church, that's not the way it works. But if John had expressed that, if they had worked something out, then they wouldn't be having this conversation, obviously. So, you kind of have to read between the lines and maybe pick up. Like I said, I thought Riccardi would be the next pastor, and just the optics of this, Phil sitting down with him, when normally it was Phil and John doing a Q&A, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So here you have Phil. He gives the most information we've got up until this point. According to Phil, he seems to think that they'll pick someone, because obviously whoever they pick has to share the same theology as John MacArthur. They're not going to find some free grace amillennialist or something. That's not going to happen. So Phil says they believe that they'll pick someone who already was at Grace or trained at the Master's Seminary. One of them, somebody who was there and then went out, got experience at another church, and then they'll bring them back. That's Phil's thoughts on what he thinks will happen. And you heard him. He said this could take years. So not just 1 year, maybe 2 years, maybe longer. I guess I'd be surprised if it took 2 years or longer. What does the Bible say? Do we get any information on what a church should do? Somebody will bring up this verse. This is from the epistle of 1 Timothy. Obviously, the qualifications for a pastor, bishop, elder, which really all those terms are used synonymously. But the pastor, in an elder-run church, the pastor he's the guy who's out front. He's the guy on top of the pyramid, but he sort of equals with all the other elders. But you get the qualifications in 1 Timothy chapter 3 and Titus chapter 1. But you do see this statement in 1 Timothy 5:22. It says, do not lay hands on anyone hastily or too quickly. In other words, do not ordain anyone to the ministry too quick. But that really is talking about too soon after their conversion. I don't know that it applies here, because whoever they choose is going to have experience either as a senior pastor or at the very least as an elder. And again, in the Bible, elder and pastor, these terms are used synonymously. So do we get any insight here? Well, I just played the clip because I know a lot of people would be interested. Again, this is the big question on a lot of people's mind. Who's going to succeed John MacArthur? Well, you might not have that answer for, according to Phil Johnson, maybe 2 years. I doubt it'll be that long, but I just knew that a lot of people would be interested in hearing this. And it's just another reminder to pray for that church, pray that God's will be done. As of today, July 21st, apparently, they don't have a consensus of who they feel is the right guy, but the Lord could work, and whether it's a month from now or a year from now, yes, that's probably what's going to happen in God's own timing. So, all right, that's all for now. If you found the clip interesting or you find this work valuable, this and my podcast, go ahead and leave a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. But until next time, may the Lord be with you and have a great day.